The clear disadvantage of the global stream is that its global engagement is liable to distance the writer from his private world and create alienation between him and his writing, alienation that might impair the depth and the meaning of his writing. On the other hand, the clear advantage of the particularist stream is that it enables a profound intimacy between the writer and his work, an intimacy that allows the writing process to go deeper, to become refined and reach a pure subjective truth which will create the revelation we seek. The clear disadvantage of the particularist stream is that due to its introversion, it's liable to create flawed cultural mutations, or in other words, distorted art forms that do not enable depth. An example of such distorted form in Israel is a theatrical form which is called Masechet. It's actually kind of a chorus performance, a ceremonial presentation of monologues and declarations with no characters and no plot. These clarifications demonstrate the great importance of the synthesis between the global and the particularist stream. If we participate in the global stream without deepening the particularist stream, our contribution to the global stream will be limited. On the other hand, if we focus on the particularist stream without participating in the global stream, we will become introverted and degenerated. The synthesis between the two can ensure both richness and depth. Let us begin by discussing the particularist stream. That is, the future development of a particular Jewish theater based on Jewish culture, history, and religion, and also on the socio-political processes undergone by Jewish society in its 1,000 years of existence, especially in recent centuries. As we know, the Jewish cultural resources available to us are huge. We can find them on the bookshelves of every library, every museum, in every theater and cinema, auditoriums, and in concert halls. Judaism has created cultural works of tremendous scope and profundity, from the Bible, the Mishnah, and the Talmud in ancient times, through Maimonides, the poets of medieval Spain, to the vast contribution of Jews to modern culture throughout the world and also in Israel. No less an inspiration can be obtained by dealing with questions of Jewish existence in our distant and recent history. Dealing with questions of Jewish religion, nationalism, survival, law, and ethics can create characters, conflicts, images, and plots for infinite number of plays. Can we identify the more important themes existing in these oceans of resources and recommend a more focused list? I'll try and propose a list of 10 themes, which is, of course, very subjective and only partial, but I hope that it can serve as a stepping stone in the search for other themes, which dealing with them in a theatrical form is both possible and vital. 1. A re-examination of the foundations of the Jewish religion, God, his appellations, his authorities, his place in our private, social, and cultural life. A re-examination of Jewish law, its validity, its adaptation to the modern global world. A search for religious and judicial authorities for our time. The creation of Jewish law schools that will accelerate the development and the renewal of Jewish law in both the religious and secular worlds. A re-examination of the place of religion in Jewish and Israeli politics. Should the halacha, the Jewish law, determine the borders of the state of Israel? Should the yearning for the Messiah create political entities that fight for redemption by political means? Jewish theater worldwide must participate in examining religious-secular relations in Israel, and particularly the separation of religion and state in Israel, a separation that will enable the development of Israeli democracy in its application to the minorities living in it. 3. An in-depth examination of the Israeli-Arab conflict, its history and implications must be conducted not only in the Israeli theater, but also in Jewish theater throughout the world. Jews all over the world must recognize the fact that the future of the state of Israel depends on the resolution of this conflict. Jewish theaters must deal with the various models for resolving the conflict and take part in the creation and internalization in Jewish communities throughout the world. 4. A re-examination of relationship between Judaism and other religions, particularly Christianity and Islam, to strive towards creating an interfaith dialogue that will serve as a tool for the development of these three religions, to create interfaith understanding that will contribute to reducing the political conflicts that feed on interreligious fanaticism, which defines redemption only in terms of annihilating the believers in other faiths. Jewish theater must also deal with the relationship between Jewish communities and the evangelist stream, which believes that the state of Israel and the conquest of the Holy Land by it are prerequisites for the second coming, after which the whole world will become Christian. 5. A re-examination of the relationship between the Jewish community and Israel, where 40% of world Jewry currently live, and other Jewish communities throughout the world. With the end of the era of immigration to Israel, what Israeli challenges are faced by world Jewry? Is the state of Israel still the insurance policy of the world Jewry? Or has it become the most dangerous place for Jews, particularly in light of the Iranian nuclear threat? What is the degree of influence of world Jewry on what is happening in Israel and on its government decisions? What is the importance of organizations like AIPAC for Israel and American Jewry? Does Israel take political and military actions while considering the effect of these actions on the world Jewish communities? The anti-Semitic events that took place after the last Israeli operation in Gaza is an example for this dilemma. 6. A re-examination of religious pluralism in the Jewish world, Orthodox, conservative, reform, and secular. Creation of an openness that will enable these streams to live side by side, enrich one another, and conduct a religious and ideological debate which will enable partnership in community organization and even family relations between individuals who belong to different streams. The theater must re-examine the social structure of the Jewish community, and especially family structures in communities with high incidence of mixed marriage and same-sex marriage. The theater must continue to examine ethnic pluralism in Jewish society, particularly attitudes towards Jewish immigrants from Asia and African countries and the former Soviet Union who are being absorbed into Jewish communities in the West. 7. A re-examination of the responsibility of Jewish communities vis-à-vis the fate and welfare of Jewish communities in distress. What conclusions were drawn by the Jewish communities following the failure of the American Jewry to help European Jewry during World War II? Did the aid extended by the State of Israel to assist in the flight of Moroccan Jewry in the 50s harm or benefit the Jews of Morocco? Today, are the big Jewish communities able to properly help the Jews of Iran, Syria, Yemen, and Ethiopia? Was the contribution of the Israeli government in the rescue and rehabilitation of the 9,000 Jews of New Orleans in the wake of Hurricane Katrina sufficient? Jewish theater must deal with the special situation of the Eastern European Jewish communities where anti-Semitism is rising dramatically, of the French Jewish community whose relations with the Muslim community are rapidly deteriorating, and of the South American Jewish communities that are also in increasing conflict with the Muslim communities there. 8. A re-examination of Jewish morals in the 20th century and a debate on ethical issues arising between people within the Jewish community, especially the attitude of Jewish individuals and institutions to the poor, the sick, and the weak in their communities, and issues arising between Jews and people from other communities, other religious minorities, foreign laborers, and refugees who seek asylum. The Darfur refugees who enter Israel, for example, is a big issue in Israel today. Jewish theater throughout the world must examine the Israeli judicial system and ask whether it is applying the Jewish principle of justice and morals in its decisions about minorities, for example, about security issues, for example,